do a little bit of supine work. Again, this is more in service towards forward head posture. So just start by sort of stretching out some of the fascia underneath the collarbone. Sort of stretching it out a little bit. Great way to introduce your touch is to just sort of move in with a little bit of petrissage into the upper traps. I'm sure we already know this, but you can, and then even a little bit of a transition. You can transition from petrissage into some muscle separation, into a bit of a distraction, and the distraction into a little bit more fascial work. If I was doing this in real life, I would actually be a little bit closer to where the camera is right now. I find this to be an excellent way to warm the neck up and to really stretch out the sides of the neck. How does it feel? Good. Just taking a second to reset and then just doing a little bit more of a stretch. So kind of have my knuckles underneath the occiput. From here you can actually do a little bit of fascial work just within the occipital muscles, or just a little bit within that base there. Put a little bit of lotion on there so it's making it a little bit tougher. Yeah, basically like that. We'll do the same to the other side. Might not need it as long, but there we go. Not as bad, but still a little bit. Awesome. Start off with some effleurage just to apply our lotion. We already massaged a little bit within the posterior neck here, so still got a fair amount of lotion there. While we did some work in a prone position for the left shoulder to get into the extensors and the posterior neck musculature, we'll do a little bit anterior just so we can see a little bit of the differences, and then you can make a little bit more of a informed decision as to which one you prefer to do. The stripping here tends to be a pretty difficult thing for some people to pull off, especially if your joints are a little bit more hypermobile. A few different ways to do this. I've heard some therapists say that it's mean to use your knuckles. Just call me a meanie, because I use my knuckles. I guess I'm using a little bit more of the phalangeals, the phalange bones there. But I'll dig a little bit of knuckle into there. Is pressure okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Something like forward head posture, especially it's a chronic, really chronic condition, you can use a fair amount of pressure and it'll be very well received. When we do a little bit of a demonstration for whiplash, however, that's when you're definitely going to need to be very, very cautious. All right, so found a I think maybe a trigger point, not within the upper traps. I'm feeling a little bit more of the splenius muscle here. So I'll show with my other hand here, just sort of digging upwards with my knuckle. I guess in this sense I'm doing a little bit more of a radial deviation. So I can turn my hand here. There, now I can throw a little bit of a bicep curl into there as well and a little bit better supported. So then from compression over to stripping, or flushing, doing effleurage. Oof, that splenius point there was key. All right, I can definitely see some restriction, some tightness within the lateral side of the neck here. So let's strip some levator. Let's strip some scalenes. So what I was doing there was just doing sort of stacked hands and just sort of moving it along like that. I've seen other therapists where they'll basically use their thumb nice stacked and supported, and they'll kind of strip across here. I find that to be tremendously awkward myself. But yeah, oftentimes I'll just use the fingertips here. So if you can imagine, just sort of palpating the side here, we got this. We have the transverse processes. I'm really worried that I said spinous process earlier. I'm sure somebody will call me on it. But we have the transverse processes here. So in and back, and behind here, we'll have a little bit more of the levator scapula, posterior scalene. A little bit more towards the side, we're going to have that middle scalene. Nice and slow stripping along there. The brachial plexus is going to emerge within the intrascalene triangle, which is between the anterior and middle scalene. So we'll want to be a little bit careful of that. But one of the cool things about getting into especially the anterior scalenes, you'll get into this muscle and they'll feel it in their shoulder and their arm. We'll even just hang out here for a little bit. If you feel a pulse, back off, readjust. We keep the thumb nice and stacked and supported, which from looking at my videos, I do about half the time. So strip along that area too. And that'll bring us over towards the SCM. So do a little bit of muscle separation on it. A little reminiscent of the first year moves. No bilateral SCM work. It's going to be a big no-no. I'm not pulling outwards too much because I don't want my client to feel like they're getting choked. And we'll just strip the anterior belly and a little bit more into the posterior side there. What we can do once we're a little bit more closer to being finished, some pin and stretches work really well within this area. So I'll pin down the shoulder and the scapula, and I'll bring the head and neck. So I'm using my hand to support the occiput. I'm using the interior portion of my forearm against the upper occipital bone. Provide a little bit of support, and I am pinning the shoulder down, the shoulder and the shoulder blade down with my right hand. Doing a pin and stretch on the levator scapula. Look how much more open it is there. That's wonderful. Just to wrap things up, let's do a little bit on the other side. Probably won't be able to see it as well, but we're going to follow about the same playbook. If you wanted to, you could do a little bit of origin insertion work. You can do some active pin and stretch within this area here, but I think that's kind of mean. I'm not going to do it too hard here, but what I can do is I can sort of pin the scaling down, and I can just get my client to bring their ear towards their other shoulder very slowly. That's good. And let's bring it back. I prefer things to do I prefer to do things more passively within the neck. Unless I'm in a seated position, that might not be as bad. Strip along the side here. Just getting into the posterior neck. Really sweet move as well for some suboccipital work. So you can, I like to call this the splitting open the dinner bun. So we'll just grab the occipital bone here and we will split open the dinner bun. Get you one of those rock hard butters. Absolutely shred that bun. Just came home after a day of work. I might be hungry. Ooh, actually a really solid pin and stretch technique that we can learn here. So let's find a suboccipital muscle. Let's not get too fancy. We'll just find one. Okay, and what I'm going to ask you to do very slowly is just bring your chin towards your chest. Just like that, yeah. Do a little bit of pin and stretch on those suboccipital muscles. And bring it back. One more time. Excellent. Let's do a little bit on the left. Bring it back. We could do that passively as well. So actually I don't think we can really do it passively. I'm kind of guiding my client through it, not having to do as much work. And then we'll flush it out. And there you have it. Anterior neck massage.